This morning I've come to Pinewood Studios, home of the very best of British filmmaking. I've come to meet a woman who tried to get into RADA 4 times, only to be told she was quite unsuitable for the acting profession. Thank goodness Joan Sims carried on regardless. You must have been very, very determined to be an actress. Who made you want to be an actress?
Me. I had this terrific love of acting. I was a member of the local amateur dramatic and operatic societies, and I was also a member of the youth centre group, drama group. It was really decided, I suppose, after I'd done very well in a drama festival, which we put on.
So it wasn't either of your parents that was saying, oh, you're rather good at acting, or rather good at your little shows?
Oh, no. They weren't those sort of parents at all.
Yeah.
My mother had a very good singing voice, but my father was the station master. And we had no theatrical connections whatsoever. So, if anything, they were rather anti me going into this dastardly profession.
Now, I know when you were little, you were very good at being a little mimic and putting on your shows. Were you, as an only child, were you lonely?
Yes, I was. But not to the extent that I was sort of depressed by it, I don't think at all. It's like a lot of children have. We great element of self-survival. And because of that, I used to spend endless hours dressing up in my mother's clothes, unbeknownst to her most of the time. And also, yes, mimicking people. I was very observant as a child. And in fact, I have been, I think, very observant throughout my life.
In your book, you also speak about one really sad moment when your mother says to you that she married somebody who wasn't really the person she wanted to marry. That must have been really hard to take on as a child.
It was such a very tragic little tale. I mean, it was really a brief encounter, the fact that she'd married my father on the rebound, and this chap who was in the army, through this misunderstanding that they'd had, they didn't meet up for tennis one day, and then 2 weeks after she had married my father, he contacted my mother, and unbeknown to my father, mother went to London and met him, where he proposed to her. And of course she said, I can't. As much as I want to, I can't. I'm already married. I mean, it's a very tragic tale, and a strange thing, I think, to have told me at such a tender age. She must have been pretty blue.
Yes. Do you think that's what put you off getting married?
I was such an idealist. I thought it had to be perfect.
Is it true that Kenneth Williams asked you to marry him?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
I thought perhaps if I did something nice for you, you might do something nice for me.
Ah, I understand. You scratch my back and I will scratch yours.
Well, that might be interesting for a start.
Why did you turn him down?
I suppose if Kenneth had been livable with, I might have said yes. Because my love wife was all of a muddle and going nowhere at the time. And for companionship, and had I been a little bit older, and Kenneth had not been so exhausting, but poor Kenny, he was utterly, utterly draining to be with, you know.
He never stopped?
He never stopped, and you just felt him, he would sap your energy, you know.
No regrets, though?
No regrets at all. I mean, it would have been absolutely impossible.
24 carry-ons you were in?
Yes, 24.
Out of 30, which is...
Out of 30.
Amazing.
When I got another carry-on script, I'd sometimes phone up Hattie and I'd say, Hat, have you got your script yet? She'd say, yes, darling. And I said, look, we're not going to do this load of rubbish. I said, it's the same old gags, Hattie. She said, what do you want about, you silly thing? We'll have fun. And, of course, we always did it. And, of course, we always loved it.
Was she your great mate, Hattie?
Yes, Hattie was very much my cup of tea. She was a wonderful person, and I really looked upon her as a sort of sister, come mother figure, really.
The carry-on films, everybody loves. I mean, they're being rerun at the moment. You can buy the videos. Which was your favourite? Was it dictated by location, all your glam locations?
Oh, no, certainly not that. I think my favourite was Carry On Khyber.
plaster. I seem to have got a little plaster.
A lot of the great comedians that we've had have had big periods of depression, haven't they?
Yeah.
And talk quite openly about it.
Yeah.
Do you think they're linked?
It's a jolly good guise, the laughter, and it can indeed, it can hide a multitude of things. And yes, I mean, the periods of depression where possibly I was able to share to a large extent with Hattie when she was alive. There have been some really desperate moments with depression, but thankfully and happily I'm out of it now.
And still smiling.
And still smiling, Alice.
Still smiling and still making everybody else smile around you. We're going to carry on with Joan Sims later on in the programme. We've mentioned your autobiography, High Spirits, which is a jolly good read, and it's jolly.
Thank you.
It's a very jolly book, but it must have been quite hard to write for a very private person.
I think I was sort of scared to write it.
Why? What didn't you want people to know?
Isn't it funny? I simply don't know. But it was opening out to sort of a whole world of people that I didn't want them to know about my private business, but actually once I'd written it down, I thought, Joan, what on earth is there to sort of be private about? I mean, you're no different to thousands of other people. It was a very good experience for me. It made me feel completely different about myself. I found that it's given me much more confidence. I hope.
Well, you don't seem as though you're lacking it. But you could have taken a very easy option and written a book just about Sid said this and Hattie said this and Barbara said this, and we'd have all been very happy with that. But you didn't. You chose to be very open and very honest about the very dark periods as well as the sort of laugh-a-minute carry-on films, didn't you?
Well, I didn't want it to be a book about scandal or a scandalous book. And yes, I do go into the periods of desperate depression that I went through.
How does a woman who is loved by the nation, working her socks off, how do you get from being such a happy-go-lucky person to being, I know, in your home, not wanting to go out and incredibly depressed?
It's not that difficult. I think when you have lived to work, which indeed I have done really, I have been a workaholic, and I've always said that I'm happiest when I am working. I don't know how it was. I suppose, you know, I'd had a series of falls and various things that happened to me, and therefore the work at that time was in very short supply. And the danger was when I didn't work, then of course the depression starts. You start to worry about money because you have to survive. And I started, you know, to drink too much. I started to get that I didn't want to sort of get up every day, or if I did get up, the first thing I would think about was when could I have the next drink. And it became really desperate. I got to such a pitch where it was said, look, you've got to go into hospital again. You have to go into hospital, otherwise you're just going to die because you are abusing yourself so badly. And I remember the morning that this letter arrived to say that indeed I could be admitted for rehabilitation. And it was something that happened to me that morning. I don't know what it was, but I thought, I am not going into hospital again. I do not need any more hospitals. I have to fight this on my own. I'm sick to death of lurching back and forward, leaning on somebody else's shoulders. Joan, you have got to get to grips with it, and you've got to do it yourself. And I rang up and I said, I won't be attending the hospital. I'm not going near another hospital. I've had hospitals up to here. And she said, are you sure? I said, I'm absolutely positive. I have the strength to fight this on my own. And the next thing I did was I went and cleaned out all the booze in the drinks cupboard. I'm ashamed to say I had 8 empty bottles in my kitchen that I had been scared to throw out in the rubbish because I was so paranoid about it. I was so riddled with guilt because I was the only person at that time that had this problem and did not know how to confront it, how to admit to it. I was so ashamed. And the sad thing was that it only really happened to me when I wasn't working.
Was taking that first step against the alcohol, against the depression, triggered by any kind of faith or belief in anybody, anything?
When I was in my deepest depression, I prayed, and I prayed very hard, and I asked God to help me, because I just was at the point where I didn't know how I was going to get out of this hole that I was in. And I felt as if I had absolutely no one to turn to. I know when, you know, you hear of other people sort of doing silly things to themselves and abusing themselves and drinking too much. Why didn't you phone me up? Why didn't you call on me? But the strange thing is, I felt so devoid of any human being. I didn't feel there was anybody I could turn to. But I did ask God for help. And if there is a God, he certainly did help me. Some sort of spiritual feeling pulled me through.
You helped yourself.
I helped myself. He must have, or something gave me the strength to get my act together, to try and restore my self-esteem, which was so low, it was unbelievable. And I'm thankful that I've made it. And I'm a much happier person now, much happier.
Any regrets that you're going to tell me about?
No. Of course, I'm sure if I really sat down and thought about it earnestly, I would have quite a few regrets, but then I don't think I would be human if I didn't have. Anything
you left out of the book that you feel you ought to share now?
Oh, a few little easy-weasy bits, yes.
Come on.
No, I'm not telling you anything. Anything more, that's your lot.
I've had my bit,
For $16.99, that's your lot.
A jolly good bargain it is too. Joan Sims, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alice. It's been lovely.